Good morning from Washington D.C. We started today back where we're staying in the suburb of Eckington, and we had two choices to get into the city. The first was to take the DC Metro from Brentwood, or I think we made the right choice. Let's get some coffee.
Thank you. Have a nice day. You too, thank you.
Now that we've gotten ourselves a morning coffee, it's time to explore all of the things to do in Washington D.C. From our research, it seems like everything is in a relatively small area. We have made ourselves a list of all the top things to do here, and we're just going to spend the day crossing off as many as we can. Starting with
the Capitol building. This is where Congress and other parts of government come together. It was actually built in the year 1800, and the cast iron dome on the roof is 8.9 million tons. We actually went downstairs, that's where we got our coffee, and it's a full museum as well. I think you can be shown around and see like all the important documents and things that were done here, but the architecture is insane. It is so big and so Greek. Like, I think that's a common theme around here. There's a lot of Greek columns. It's really impressive. This did actually used to host the Library of Congress, which is where you'd go and get all your documents you need for debates and things like that. But they got so big and there was so many different books and maps in there that they had to move location. And that's our second spot, just across the street.
the Capitol building is huge, like way bigger than I thought it was going to be. There is heaps of people obviously around, but one thing I found super interesting was the amount of black SUVs with like blacked out windows standing out the front.
Some important people.
Yeah, I have no idea who they would be, but they must be important.
Stop number 2 is actually joined by secret tunnels underneath our feet, right where we are now.
Is it?
Yeah, really cool.
So cool.
So we are going to the Library of Congress. Effectively, that is where all the books that were in the Capitol building had to go to, but people that are debating still need those books. So instead of sending people running across the road all the time, they built an underground tunnel that would have an electronic tray that would whiz from building to building to get the books they needed.
So you can just be like, I need the dictionary or whatever, and they send it to you with an escalator kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Library of Congress is really cool because it has these underground tunnels linking it, but there are a few other facts that we thought were just awesome, and that is that this is the biggest library in the world. Has over 175 million items, books, maps, manuscripts, all sorts of stuff. 175 million, crazy. And it's always going to be the biggest because they've got a copyright law in here. So anything that is copyrighted in all of the United States has to have at least one copy sent here. How cool is that?
What a way to cheat the system.
Obviously, it's also a very, very intricate and beautiful building, as I think we're gonna kind of get used to in Washington, D.C.
We are getting through this list pretty quickly today. The Library of Congress, you can actually go in. It's only open to the public Tuesday to Friday, 10 till 5, I believe, and we're here on a Monday. Being that we are in the country's capital, we are surrounded by epic buildings, monuments, sites, museums. But if you want to get out of the hustle and bustle, you don't have to go far.
This feels like we have been immediately transported back to Southeast Asia. It is so humid in here, like rainforest. Rainforest humid, and totally different from outside.
It is kind of crazy how quickly the weather is changing today, so it's so nice to come inside and get away from the wind. What's nuts is that this is completely free. There are over 60,000 species of plants, including rare and endangered ones, and you can just come in and enjoy it for free.
About 20 years years after the Botanical Gardens was built here, Congress voted to create the Smithsonian Institution, which started with a $500,000 donation from James Smithson, who wanted to increase and diffuse knowledge. It's now one of the most world-renowned, biggest names. Smithsonian museums are all over the place, and that's our next stop.
This is one of the largest and most visited natural history museums in the entire world. It has so many different exhibits and specimens, including a 45-carat blue diamond called the Hope Diamond that is one of the largest and most expensive diamonds in the entire world. It is also yet another thing in Washington D.C. that is completely free. So we're going to spend a few hours here exploring all of the different exhibits.
Natural History Museum was as cool as we thought it was going to be, but we are getting so hungry, so we're going to go to a very specific spot on our list. Jesus.
When we were researching today, trying to decide where we were going to eat for lunch, basically you cannot search the internet Washington D.C. food without coming across Ben's Chili Bowls. It has been a Washington institution since 1958, and to give you some context of how important it is to the community, during the D.C. riots, everywhere was required to have a curfew, but Ben's Chili Bowls was allowed to stay open. You come in here and there is just photos upon photos on the walls, newspaper clippings. You can just tell there's so much love in this place. And it's actually home to Washington's signature dish, the half smoke.
I don't even know what's on it. I just said with the lot, with everything. That is delicious. Oh, you get a little bit of a tingle from the spice too. A half smoke is a chili dog that's half pork, half beef. It's all delicious. So that's really the big thing that matters. The spice as well. Like, quite often you have chili that doesn't have any spice, but I've got the lip tingles from this. It's good.
I'm not a big hot dog person, so it's fine, but I got chili cheese fries. I'm almost happy the weather changed now because this is perfect given the windy temperature outside. Obviously, chili isn't the most photogenic of foods, but it is delicious.
I think out of everywhere we've stopped so far, that's probably my highest recommendation. If you are here in Washington D.C., you have to go there, get a half smoke, get the chili cheese fries too because they were delicious. Let's cross it off.
Let's cross it off.
Now that we have fixed our hunger problem, the next stop is a lot more recognizable.
This is where the President of the United States of America lives, and that's about all I know. I know there's heaps of rooms in here, including like a bowling alley and a film room. I think the most fun fact I have about the White House is that the name doesn't actually represent anything. I thought after being through Asia and stuff, colors have such meaning behind them. Like the white temple we went to in Chiang Rai, the white represents purity in Buddhism. So I thought the White House, maybe white represents freedom and justice and America. It was just the sandstone needed to be whitewashed. So now the building's white, so we call it the White House.
Probably does. Maybe
Everything I searched was like, no, it's just because it's made of sandstone and sandstone's really porous, so you need to whitewash it to treat it, and now it's white. So White House.
One thing I know for certain is that you used to be able to get a lot closer than you can now. I don't know whether it was because Trump was a bit scared or whatever, but
No, we can't say that. You used to be able to go up to the first fence, like right close to the White House, and now there's the road and a secondary fence. I do know that today the Vice President is visiting or doing Vice Presidency things in the White House, so whether or not this is just for today and you can normally go closer, I'm not sure.
True, could be not permanent, I don't know.
On to the next monument. This is the Washington Monument. It is 555 feet tall, and at the time of its completion was actually the tallest structure in the entire world until 1898, I think, when the Eiffel Tower was completed. The outside is made of marble, and as you can see, like halfway up, it kind of changes color, and that's because they started getting sourced from a different area. One really interesting thing is that somehow this huge structure was just held together by friction and gravity until recently, when they had to do some like fortifying on the inside. You can actually go inside and up to the top of the Washington Monument. We are on a budget and sort of crunched for time, so we don't have the opportunity to do that today. We are now back on the National Mall, but we're going to take a quick detour to the National Archives to see some pretty impressive things.
One thing I really didn't expect in Washington is that everywhere in the National Mall and everywhere that we've pretty much walked, ice cream trucks. Everywhere. Ice cream trucks.
Ice cream trucks, like food trucks in general, and even clothing has been sold out of some of them. It's so bizarre.
I just don't understand the ice cream. Like, there'll be 5 in a row that are all, there's one, there's one, there's one, there's one back there. It's insane.
We are getting through this list. We weren't allowed to take any photos inside of the National Archives, but we did get to see the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights. A good note is that you can reserve time tickets online, but we only had to wait 10 minutes in the general admission area. It is free to enter, but if you buy a time ticket, it's $1 processing fee. Now, we haven't really planned the day the best because we wanted to get into the National Archives at the time we were here. We are backtracking a bit past the Washington Monument to get a nice view of the National Mall.
So that was the Korean War Memorial. It's a lot more solemn than a lot of the other places that we're visiting today. The soldiers represented are pretty big. They're on purpose a bit larger than life, and I remember coming here when it was the first time I went to Washington, and I went through at night time. They were all lit from the bottom, so it kind of made them look a little bit scary. But the monument itself is very, very striking, and there's etchings on the walls of all the names, and there's even like portraits along another one of the walls too. From here we are skipping across the reflection pool to another memorial. Our second to last stop is the Vietnam War Memorial. It's quite different to other war memorials you'll see. It doesn't really have the grandiose, heroic figures and statues everywhere, and it actually had a little bit of controversy when it was first built because of that. It is still pretty haunting, a big black wall with names of people who served. We've only got one stop left on this, turns out to be massive, Washington D.C. tour. Last stop today for us is the Lincoln Memorial. It's a memorial built in the likeness of the 16th President of the United States, Abe Lincoln. Very important man. They've given him a very, very good view of Washington here.
One of the coolest things is that they depicted him like they tried to get his personality across. So he is a bit older, a bit worn, but he's still like strong and determined. And to show that, one of his hands is clenched to show his strength and determination, and the other one is more open to show his openness, to show his compassion. That is the end of a monumental tour of Washington D.C.
That was pretty good, actually.
That was good, right?
Yeah. We didn't actually get to everything on the list. We missed a couple. Georgetown's a little bit far for us today, and the art gallery we didn't get to either.
But what a great time in Washington D.C. This is such a unique city. It is such a walkable city, and you get to see all of these cool monuments along the way.
Very fun day.
This is the Washington but Ben's Chili's Bowl. Ben's Chili's Bowl.
This is the Washington Monument. Whoa, I'm excited to get there.